Karen, thank you much. You know, it's amazing, again, look at the moment. You have all of this opportunity, you have all of these things coming together, and then you have people like Karen and Julius have been doing this for 20 years and are parents and want to make it happen. So, third introduction, same thing. Chris Kelly's been doing this forever. I think I first met him when he was the Chief Privacy Officer at Excite. How many of you all remember Excite at Home when it was one of the internet killers? That's right, Chris, it wasn't on your thing here, but I remember those days. He is also, and has been, he's first and foremost, again, a dad who lives in Palo Alto, and he has been, until very recently, the Chief Privacy Officer at Facebook. He is now running for the Attorney General of the state of California, so he is not allowed to make any political statements at all today on his own behalf. But I will tell you this, it's really interesting if you look at this, because you have, if you think about digital literacy, and again, that's what we're really talking about here, is using education and using digital technology to change kids' lives, creatively, play, and education. You have the leading technology person in the United States in the government, Julius. You have the person who's running technology at the Department of Education, who must work with the FCC if we're ever going to get the kind of future we need. And then you have someone who spent his life in the private sector primarily, who has been looking at the issues of privacy and safety, and now I hope he will frame it in terms of literacy. Because as good as the panel is that Marcely just led on internet safety, taking safety to the issues of literacy and citizenship is really where this has to go for kids in education. So, other than the fact that both Chris and Julius went to an inferior law school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they are both really great stalwarts in this area. So, Chris Kelly. And then if we're quick, we will get a few more minutes of all these guys together.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. I am going to be quite brief because I want to get into the mix of discussions with two great leaders. I had the great pleasure before I got into the private sector to work in the public sector with Julius's old boss, Reed Hunt, and his colleague, Don Gipps, on the Secretary's first conference on internet and technology at the Department of Education when I worked in the Clinton administration, and also with Karen's predecessor, Linda Roberts, on that. It was clear then that it was going to be incredibly important for government to be engaged in this in an intelligent way. I've had the opportunity over the last 4 years to see it from the private sector perspective, to take that public sector ideas about what we need to see and then to try to help implement it in technology. And what I want to emphasize here is that it's important to have that dialogue between government and the private sector, where innovation can flourish a little bit faster than it can in government. And I know that Karen and Julius are going to push very hard within this administration to make government move and innovate faster, which we need desperately. But the private sector is always going to move a bit faster. And at Facebook, we took our responsibility seriously from the beginning, that we wanted to make sure that we were building systems that helped keep kids safer and that encouraged more pro-social behavior online. And that included taking responsibility for content, pushing towards a uniform identity, which has privacy concerns, but if you put the right privacy layer on it and give people control over their information, you actually end up empowering consumers in a way that they haven't been empowered before, and the funny thing that happens is that they actually share more. Because they want to be connected with people within their social context. So that learning and that important implementation that we've seen has led to the incredible growth of Facebook. More than 350 million people around the world using it. We continue to adhere at Facebook. I'm on leave. I'm not actually speaking for the company in this capacity directly, but we've kept to a 13-year-old age minimum. Looking to develop parental controls that allow parents to express themselves and to work with their kids on building this digital literacy, as Jim said. So with that, I want to throw us into the mix and talk about how we can strategize to move toward the child of 2040, but I want the child of 2010 to be taken care of. As Jim mentioned, I'm a new dad. I've been working on these issues for almost 20 years. I've got a 15-month-old at home who likes to play with my iPhone, who likes to look at the truck videos wherever he can get them. I want to make sure that he's got good literacy as he encounters all of this wonderful, wonderful media, and that it doesn't help to lead him astray. And great organizations like Jim are helping to build that. Great organizations like Facebook are looking to build the infrastructure that supports that. And working with the government, both the U.S. government and governments around the world, I think that we can make major strides forward on internet safety and literacy. So thank you very much, and let's get to the discussion.
So I'm just going to let you guys ask questions. As I said, you're rarely going to get Julius, Karen, and Chris all on stage at the same time. They know this field incredibly well, and most of all, they're all parents who love kids. So, audience questions. Yep, right there.
I've worked with teachers where they try to stay connected 24 hours a day so students can be learning 24 hours a day, but there's always, it doesn't matter what school district it is, there's 10% of students or 50% of students that don't have internet access at home, so overall they can't do that 24-hour learning. So how and when can we get it so all students will have internet access to be able to do 24 hours?
Julius, you have to answer that. Mr. Broadband.
Well, this is one of, is this on? Are we good?
Yep.
It's a great question. It's a great challenge. You know, the numbers are something like about 35% of people who could subscribe to broadband don't have it. About 35% of households who could have broadband don't. And then there's a percentage of the country, millions of Americans who live in areas where they can't get broadband at all. And as part of the broadband plan that we're developing, we're looking at both that adoption challenge and the deployment challenge. None of these things are easy. None of them will be solved overnight. They do require a national commitment. But we've been running a process for the last few months, working closely with the education department, other parts of government, people in the private sector, people who've been working on these issues for a long time to develop the best strategies to articulate the best goals for the country to put us on a course to get there. And I think we have an opportunity now, especially in a government that's committed to using all resources most efficiently to make sure that we're allocating the proper level of resources to this challenge. And there are resources and assets and levers at the FCC that we'll be looking at. The Education Department is focused on modernizing schools. This will be part of their agenda. There's a lot of work to do. By the way, it's not all money. There's work to do on the literacy piece that isn't necessarily about spending dollars and that can involve public-private partnerships. I guess one of the things I'd say is that there isn't going to be a silver bullet solution to this problem any more than any other. But I think what I hope you'll see as we work together on this are some clear goals for the country about where we want to go, some initiatives that will really make a difference, and then really a long list of action steps to put us on a course to get there.
Anybody else want to comment or he said it. The one thing is obvious, though, is despite all the other discussions we have today, if the government doesn't play that leadership role, and if Julius in his role doesn't say that, it won't happen. And those are the kids who need it as much as any other, as my kids and your kids do. Yep. Jim.
Great director of learning at Leapfrog. I've had probably 20 years myself of early childhood education and technology, and I think about Head Start. And I'm curious what the current thinking is about both in government and private sector and how collaborations could happen to provide the sort of learning you're talking about, comparing those points that you made at the earliest ages where those habits of mind really start with kids and families. Is that part of the picture, or is it?
No, that's absolutely part of the picture. In fact, it's all the way from early learning all the way through to all the way to workforce. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, what about early learning? Are we starting thinking at kindergarten, or are we starting earlier than that? And we definitely are starting earlier than that. We know about the million-word gap, or the fact that many young children need much more language development, much more interaction, and the work from PBS and others that do media development. These kinds of things are strategies. The Ready to Learn, the Ready to Teach grants that come out of the Department of Education are avenues. So what we're trying to really do is have a comprehensive strategy and try to connect all these things together with the best innovative and design thinking, so that we don't have kind of an activity here, an activity here, an activity here. We're really trying to connect it over together so that early childhood, and that includes parent education at very young ages as well, all the way to the workforce, are covered.
Chris, anything to add, or Joyce?
I think that it should be obvious, and one of the things that's great to see among this panel, and the government representatives have great private sector experience as well. The private sector, I think, has good understanding of how important it is to have early childhood education